You just got to have people on who give you money. And so we're all going to meet Curt Bergland together. Curt has bought several games for using Patreon on my channel. And you can't see the bottom of his shirt there, but he is an unabashed Bill Buckner fan. I believe you're from Wisconsin, right?
I am.
You are. Yeah. And so I'm sure that Cheeseheads and Camp Randall also are right up there on the list. And I know from stuff I've done for you that you are a Milwaukee Brewers fan.
I am.
One of the trickiest things that I did was the game between the 18 version and the 82 version, because they're two different leagues, but the same team. And that was, what do I call them? The Brewers lead the Brewers. Anyway, welcome, Curt Bergland.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Oh, thank you so much. And so Curt is going to be the sponsor of our newest Patreon project. Get off the, you not click on the end broadcast thing here. How you doing, Fandomatic? We already got people saying hi. Curt is going to be the sponsor of that 60s tournament. Now, if you watch the Dave Little sponsored that 70s tournament, you'll know pretty much how that works. I'm not sure exactly what Curt wants, but Curt was very nice to say that he will let you guys pick 4 teams, and he's going to pick 4 teams. And so I hope that we'll actually do one game tomorrow afternoon.
Live. I don't see why not.
Live at 4:00 Eastern, because I've been slacking when it comes to that sort of thing. So, Curt, how long have you been a game player?
I would say so about 43 years. I'm 53, and I remember starting in earnest when I was about 10 with Stratomatic and Superstar Baseball from Sports Illustrated.
Oh,
yeah, that was a big one. And Sherco, which at the time was a like they had newspapers that they would send out with updated seasons on them, and so it was something that I dabbled with too. So those were the first 3 that started the illness.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. Isn't it? We absolutely understand it. Sherco, I don't know if you knew this or not, is being redistributed by Brian Martin through ASG Games.
Yes, and I think that's exciting. There's a lot to like, I think, about Sherco, and one of the things that I learned, just because of the way that the playing field is sort of set up in a grid, is that I learned as a pretty young guy about cutoff plays and throws to bases and all that stuff through and how well defenses would handle those types of things through Sherco's rating system. So that was a real education for me, and I think it would be for a lot of people.
So late 70s, obviously.
Right.
And some bottle money or begging the parents and all that. What did they think?
Well, my mom was a single mom by that point, and I think that one of the things that I remember her saying a lot was that this was better than a lot of things I could be doing. And so I'm not sure that the lowest common denominator sort of thought process is really the one that is the best way to go, but it worked for that. And so she was very, very glad to help me however she could to between my part-time jobs that I had at that time as a young guy.
Paper boy or
what's that?
Paper boy?
I was a locker room attendant.
Really?
Yes, I was.
For whom?
Well, for the local school district in the rec department. And then I was also a tennis court monitor. So what I had to do was to pester people to give me money to play tennis.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got beat up a lot, basically.
Oh, dear. Then I'm not envious anymore. But town had courts? or
What's that?
town head courts or local college head courts? Or
Right behind the both high schools. And so I sort of was assigned those and made almost no money, but it was a good way to get started and to learn about work and all that good stuff.
Sports Time Machine, Mr. Mike, how are you? All right, yeah, because the town I grew up in put in lighted courts, and you had to go to town hall or the town hall, and it was $1.50 for pretty much a slug with ridges that bought you a half hour of lighted court time. And by God, if you made the mistake of going too late and not putting there you did not know the timer was going off, and you went from decent mid-80s floodlights, these were well-lit courts, to
Sure.
complete in the dark in no time flat.
Wow.
And so you try to get a manual wheelchair, a kid in a manual wheelchair out of there when you can't see what the hell you're doing. Anyway, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So you had a real love of sports early. And so as far as your gaming disorder goes, that spread to football and other sports?
Eventually, yes. I picked up Stratomatic football in 78 or 9, I guess it was.
The older version of it then, yeah.
Yeah, the big cards and basketball. After they did the first revision around 80, I think, or for the 80-81 season, I think. And so those were my non-baseball ones. I never really found anything for football or basketball that I thought was as good. But for baseball, I've been in pretty much a constant search, and for a couple of different reasons, I think there's some better stuff out there now. So.
Yeah, and I think honestly that kind of is where all of us are. Is let's find, there is no such thing as the perfect engine.
Right.
If you've seen some of this chat back and forth type stuff, I cut really micro league. If you want to go back that far, 1984, had, floppy disks in the 85 season, then the 86 season when it came out, and no, it could never get the Red Sox over to beat the Mets. And then in college, Stratomatic, and then it's, obviously Action PC now, but I think I don't even want to know how many games I own and how many seasons I own, but yeah, you're right. Okay, so I guess the next logical question is, what caused you to look further? What was it about Strat? I guess we're talking probably about the time that Super Advanced came out.
Right. Because I would say that that in between iteration of Strat cards where the advanced or where the E ratings were on there.
Okay.
And it certainly had the advanced game and the E ratings. In that period of 77 to 84, I think was a real strong period for Strat, and the one that I still liked the best. And then in 85, they started gradually rolling out what we would now call Super Advanced. And while I couldn't have told you that at the time, the problem that I saw with it was the 50-50 system. And so here's two really extreme examples of what I saw that I didn't think was right. I had played in that time period hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of Stratomatic games over that period of time. And I was a pitcher back when I was young and good enough to do that. And I had exactly one no-hitter in that time. And I had exactly no games with a batter that hit 3 home runs. And I had one game with a batter that hit 4. And both of those were from the 79 set. Mm-hmm. And so my frustration was, and no hitters, no perfect games. In fact, very few 1 and 2 hitters.
Thinking all the time I've played, I've had 2.
Yeah.
And none with Strat, but
it that bothered me because it didn't seem as well as the game creates an environment in which the stats over time turn out to be pretty much accurate. There wasn't a way to really even hope for, in my case, individual performances that would be anything like what we see in baseball. And so the problem that I saw was that the batter had way too much control in a 50-50 system in terms of being able to affect the outcome of the pitch. And so I was looking for other ways to see if I could find a game that would create those individual performances that I was looking for, not just end of season stats, but stuff along the way that I wanted to see. And that was my problem with Strat and what we now call a 50-50 system.
So did you try APA?
Yes. In 1980, I think 81 season was my first APA purchase. And I like it a lot. In fact, I like it more now than I used to. But I saw it having the same problems. If you're used to playing advanced Strat and you go to the APA pitching system and you don't have a real motivation for doing it, it gets to be kind of tiresome kind of quickly. At least it did for me. And so APA was part of, at that time, my search for a better system, just like not Sherco.
Now it's Dombrov, right? The old SI.
Right. Status Pro was another one.
Okay.
Where the control number for the pitchers, I thought, might be the key to really creating something that had the pitcher. I don't want to say dominance, but almost dominance of throwing that pitch and really affecting how things go at the start. And so the problem I found there was that I didn't like the defensive setup. I didn't like the way that the hitter cards looked in terms of the way that the stats worked out. They weren't working out very well for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that the good pitchers in Status Pro had too much control. And so I remember I had a Ron Guidry, 78 Ron Guidry, who should have had all sorts of
25 and 3 and a 1.53 ERA. Thanks for
exactly.
bringing that up, Curt.
And he should have all sorts of control, but he was like 37-0 for me. I couldn't lose. Oh, so anyway, and I'm sure the game is better now. I haven't played it in years. I know there've been revisions to it, but so that went too far in the other direction. So I was still looking for some way to make the changes or the additions to a game that I was looking for.
So when did you realize that you were living the real life version of Goldilocks and the Three Bears? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yes. Very much so. Very much so. And there was like, it's not like now, but at the time, if you looked through magazines, you could find competitors that would be out there that would have a new way to maybe do things. But we're in a very, very different time now.
Right. I think the big game of the 80s that came out was Pursue the Pennant, which I believe had the 3 10-sided dice.
Yeah.
And that must have been... And that was the one that, like, no, that's a bridge too far. We don't see you as it is. Go play your micro league. So obviously you developed a pretty good math head pretty early on then, and Curt has a good educational background, which we'll get to. How did one feed into the other, and was math a strong point for you when you started playing this stuff?
No, it wasn't. In fact, I am proficient at what I call baseball math, but no other kind. So
got to start somewhere.
Yes, and so my daughters, in fact, quickly outpaced me in their high school careers with the difficulty of the things that they were working on. But if you were in a situation where you needed an average calculated quickly, even in my head, to 3 or 4 decimal points, I could do that without too much of a problem, and ERAs too. And so those types of things. And so, and as I read more and more Bill James each year at the time in the 80s, that would sort of force me to stretch myself a little further math wise. So yeah, it was helpful for sure in class because I could do things that.
Are we going to devolve into a conversation on win shares here?
No, I hope not.
Good.
Yeah. That would be unfortunate for everyone involved.
Yes. So, okay. And of course, your daughters had access to much more powerful computers in the trash 80s and the Commodore VIC-20s that we had growing up. They would have laughed at that anyway. Okay. So, small town kid in Wisconsin, sports geek role play. Did you play with others or was it mostly solitaire?
There were 4 of us that played. I believe I was the one that introduced the game to everybody else, but it was close. A couple of us were picking. Strat was becoming more advertised at that point, and we were looking for something to do, and none of us could drive, and so it was something that we picked up and got interested in. But my solitaire experience in Strat was a lot more time consuming and detailed stat wise than everybody else's was. And so I spent a lot more time with it.
Still have the notebooks?
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah. I'm not real proud of that, actually.
You should be quite proud of that, to be honest. There's lots of things about our spouses or whatever that, whatever, just do it. But no, if you took all the time to do that, you should be quit. And if you still have them all these years later, own it, baby. Own it.
All right, fair enough.
All right. So who was your favorite Strat player? Who was the one that you looked forward to playing? Obviously, you're being a Brewers fan, but if you played as many games as you say, you obviously saw everybody. So who was it that you just kind of overperformed, stuck in your head?
Buckner for sure, but I gave him a lot of opportunities to do it.
You Cubs fan too, because it was 2 separate leagues at that point for Milwaukee and Chicago.
Right, it was. And the thing that made me a Cub fan, just like the thing that made me a Brave fan, was that in '79 we got cable, and so I ended up seeing a lot more Cubs and Braves games than I did Brewer games. And I know that my mom tells me stories about how I was reading the sports page at 7 years old. I'm not certain of that, but I guess I must have been. And so between the newspaper and the sporting news and then the cable, it was Braves players like Murphy and Horner and Cub players like Buckner and Kingman and Mercer.
Yes.
That really kind of got me really excited about seeing what I could do to create that myself and make some of those decisions that managers were making. And Suter was a big thing for me.
Oh yeah, especially for Chicago. Yeah.
Right.
God, they had Willie Hernandez, Donnie Moore, and Bruce Suter.
Right.
Still couldn't win 75 games.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So
we got cable in '79, and we got Atlanta, Chicago, and I lived in New Mexico for a year and a half, and Los Angeles. And so I got exposed to Vin Scully at 8 and didn't really like him. I know it's kind of strange now because if you watch my stuff, that's obviously a major influence.
Right.
But no, at the time, we got Jack Brickhouse, Skip and Pete and Ernie, and Vinny.
Yeah.
No
baseball network, no national ESPN games.
Oh my God, no! I mean, as a Red Sox fan, we thank you for not talking about '78. But as a Red Sox fan, God, if you saw them on TV 3 or 4 times a year, that was fantastic. I was a big fan of Joe and Tony.
Yes, me too. And it was hip back then to criticize them, but I always liked them. So
yeah. And I think Keith Jackson did a much better job on baseball than he ever would want to have admitted to. And Cosell sucked.
Terrible.
Terrible. 78 Brewers. I will bring up 78 at that point, because if you play that on the tabletop on the computer, Milwaukee is not only going to contend, but probably win that division because their pitching is so strong. So we'll start with some of the math stuff with why are they so strong on the tabletop? They finished third or fourth that year?
Third. Okay. I believe it was third.
But they own the table. They own the tabletop in 78.
Right. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One is that I find when I use the 78 Brewers that you have to be really careful about your bullpen usage and make sure that you're
They have none.
Right. And so, well, I mean, Castro, I guess, was okay. But other than him, that was it. And so that means, and George Bamberger was a big 4-man rotation guy. So you've got 20% of your starts weren't taken up by people like Andy Replogle and Jerry Augustine. So you could really hit your stride with some guys that were really good players. But I think for me, Caldwell and Sorensen could get you 2 wins in the start of any series, and then you could slug your way to the third one. Deep team, lots of offense, and a lot of platoon balance. So you'd have Ogilvy, Cooper, and
Don Money.
Yeah, Money, who could play anywhere. Bando was still really good.
That's right. I forgot he was still there.
Right, and Yount was coming into his own a little bit. He had started to get stronger, and Heisel then just went nuts. In fact, Heisel was maybe the most famous game in Brewer history, I guess, is when they beat Guidry for the first time that season and kind of got everyone's attention that this might be a team to be reckoned with rather than what the Brewers had always been up until that point, which was pretty horrible. So, and Heisel hit a big home run off Guidry, and that's kind of got the train rolling a little bit. So, yeah, there's a lot there. There's good defense. So if you do start a pitcher that's maybe not so good, that defense up the middle can get you out of a lot of problems. So I think it makes kind of perfect sense. The combination of that with the fact that I'm less than, overwhelmed with the Yankee numbers in 78 makes people think when they start a replay of that season that, oh, well, the Yankees are obviously going to take the East. Well, no, they're not, because a lot of those guys had started the slide at that point, and Steinbrenner wasn't doing anything, I guess, other than signing Gossage to try and stop that process. So the Yankees were very beatable, and as you don't want me to tell you, they were there to be had. So, so I think,
I think you're all on 20 that year too. I mean, that was,
yeah.
I go back and do some of the as played stuff from that. You got to wonder what Billy Martin was thinking with sticking Cliff Johnson behind the plate and Thurman as a DH and some of the other questionable moves. I mean, you can understand why he was replaced, and whatever Bob Lemon did, it worked.
Yes. Yeah, I don't, for the life, I don't get it. I really don't get how he could have had that big an impact in that short of a time to do what they ended up doing. I don't get it. To this day, I don't get it, but.
It's the same thing. It's what the Red Sox did in 2004. They just kind of caught fire one day, had to fight with New York, traded Nomar, and just caught lightning in a bottle that last 65, 70 games of the year. And we know how that went. So It can happen. It can happen. All right. So you are an educator.
Mm-hmm.
Did your love of games help lead you to that? Because obviously, most 15, 16-year-old kids aren't looking through notebooks and pouring through stats.
Yes. Well, I was always curious about why things worked the way that they worked, and I was lucky enough to have learned how to read at a pretty young age pretty well. And so those two things made it easy to digest some of the things that some of my peers probably weren't reading. And so I was able to get into them earlier and start to learn, for example, what sabermetrics was, and look different ways of looking at why teams performed like they did. And so when my friends and I would set up tournaments of the Strat teams that we had, I wanted to know why my team won or lost. And for the next tournament, I want to know which teams I really ought to be picking. And so those things were motivating enough for me to kind of dive into what the numbers meant.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, back then, as you remember, there's nothing like the numbers we have today, but you could still start to piece some things together and
Yes.
why things worked like they did.
Okay. And so how did that lead to, if it did at all, lead to you being curious enough to want to get into education?
Well, I was a history and government teacher. And the thing that
goes hand in hand now, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. And I taught some philosophy too, which relates to something that I'll talk about, I guess, later. But the history part, I was interested in things like how did World War II affect Major League Baseball? Those two things kind of dovetailed for me, or for that matter, World War I.
Right.
The civil rights movement, civil rights era, I was fascinated with that. And then, okay, well, wait a minute, how did that impact baseball, and what did that look like? So there were all sorts of things that I was fascinated by and reading about in school that were kind of feeding my baseball interest as well. And so, it's they ended up kind of supporting each other, and I kind of ended up as a history major, and I ended up later with a master's in political science, but there's a lot of history masters I would have loved to have earned as well. So it's just a very interesting set of periods, set of eras, I think.
Yes.
And so there was a lot to be learned, and I was interested in it for sure.
We really don't, in my view, have a very good grasp of the last 120 years. If you go, I remember going through 8th grade history 1,000 years ago, and we're into April, and we're still stuck in talking about the Civil War, and nothing about. Now, I was in 8th grade in 1983, so the shot down Korean airliner, all was going on at that time, and that, and so yeah, no, I could definitely see that, and how things, Jackie Robinson, Kurt Flood,
Right.
What Bob Feller and Ted Williams lost to the war,
Exactly.
Christy Mathewson from his service with his tuberculosis, and a lot of stuff we don't realize until later.
Yeah, and I think it was Mathewson first, because I did not know. First of all, I was if you've played Superstar Baseball, he's just a huge part of that. And I didn't know his story. And then when I found out about it, I was just fascinated that this could have happened to someone, and that, he didn't die in battle, but he died because of battle. And
right.
So then I did get into Williams and Feller and all that. So for sure, yes.
Okay. So, where'd you do your undergrad?
Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington, Illinois.
Oh, okay. Henry Blake, good for you.
Yes, very much so.
And did you get your teaching certificate there, or?
I did, yes. 4 years, I got that. I got everything out of my undergraduate experience that I could. I was student body president. I was president of my dorm. I had a radio show. I just did everything I could possibly do. And then I decided that when I graduated, I was going to go to graduate school, and I was either going to get a master's or a teaching job.
Okay.
And whichever one was first, that was what I was going to do. And so I started my master's, but I eventually got hired to teach. And so that's what I did. I finished my master's in political science in 97.
Okay.
And taught high school for 16 years, I believe. And
That
then,
must have been wild not being too far out of school to go back and teach high school again.
yes. In fact, but some of those relationships that I had with students, I still have today, because we were kind of all going through the same thing, just starting high school, in my case, again.
Yeah.
And I was doing it at my alma mater. And so it was.
Oh, you can go home again.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah. And so it was really funky to me for a lot of reasons, because anyway, there was a lot there, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And it was a great part of my life. Even though the way I did it wasn't real bright, but I certainly worked hard and tried hard, and I think I was okay at it for a while. And so it worked out. It was good. It's a good period.
Good for you. And were you principal at your old high school?
No, I was a principal of virtual schools. After that, I got real interested in technology. And I had also been really interested in helping students that I called disenfranchised for a variety of reasons. And my first administrative job was as a principal of a K-12 virtual school that had 1,200 students in it. And it was
regional or national or international. What's the
statewide? Right, statewide
for Wisconsin.
Right. And so 4 months after I started that position, the state teachers union sued us and tried to shut us down because they thought we were taking jobs away from classroom teachers, brick and mortar teachers. And so I had to go testify in front of the state legislature and talk to all sorts of lobbyists and do all that kind of stuff that I knew about from political science, but I never thought I'd be doing. And so it was a little more, I guess, tension-packed externally than I expected it to be, but still a great experience. Did that for 3 years and then moved on to another virtual school before I decided to try higher ed. And then I decided to come back to the classroom after that. And that's where things kind of ended. So
how does one be a principal of a school that doesn't exist in a brick and mortar setting? I mean, you can't, if you get in a fight with somebody, there's no office to go send them to, and there's no fire alarms to pull, and there's no, I guess everyone can lead an assembly, I suppose, but you know where I'm going with that.
I do. We had an environment called Illuminate, and those were chat rooms not unlike what we're in right now, where the teacher could see all the students face to face and meet several times a week. And there would be a whiteboard as part of the room, and the teachers could use that to, do math problems or demonstrate a science equation or whatever it might be, and get immediate feedback from how the students were doing based on, not only what they were typing or saying on their microphones, but also the facial expressions that he or she could see immediately. And so it worked really well for students that needed that kind of experience. Some were hyper gifted students that just the brick and mortar classroom could not meet their needs. And some were students that were in a very rural district and mom and dad weren't thrilled with how good the school was, to students with special needs and disabilities who, for a variety of reasons, and this is a little bit different time too, 15 years ago when the law was the law, but it wasn't being enforced real well. And so in those kind of educational environments, students could have the protection of the law, but still not have their needs being met very well and not learning as much as they should. And so it was, and of course now I think there's a lot less of that, but we were in that in-between stage. And so it was a different time, and the school was very attractive to all sorts of different things.
Happy to talk about mainstreaming back in the 70s and 80s. offline.
Right. 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 Right.
Okay. And then you had a disability, which kind of took you away from that.
Right. I was diagnosed with a sleeping disorder called central apnea. And that was in the winter, the early part of the winter of 15. And I knew I wasn't feeling good, and I knew I didn't have energy like I should have and like I thought I used to. But I didn't know why. And I went to a whole bunch of doctors, and I was eventually diagnosed with central apnea, and they started.
How is that different from normal sleep apnea, or is it one and the same?
Well, no, it's different. It's a more rare type. It's not obstructive, so it's not the type that
I've battled over the years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then, like
I was a really, really big boy at
or an obstruction causing the problem. That wasn't what I had. Still have. What I have is a neurological condition where my brain tells my body to stop breathing when I sleep.
Oh, that's scary.
And so I wake up gasping for air as often as 40, 50, 60 times a night. And so I will get somewhere between 2 and 4 hours of real sleep.
Oh.
And I get very, very little REM sleep. And so I woke up in January of 16 after having given final exams, and I couldn't get out. In fact, I couldn't move. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't reach my phone. I couldn't do anything. I just couldn't. And so I knew I had a serious problem, and it wasn't just how the hell was I going to call into work that day. So I took long-term disability, which I didn't have much choice in doing.
Right.
And eventually resigned my position in April and started doing all the sleep study stuff that I'm sure you've done. And trying to get a handle on, was medication going to help me? Was a CPAP machine going to help me? Or was it going to be something else or some combination? And basically what I found out, to make a long story short, although it's a little late for that now, is that nothing worked. The CPAP machine wasn't helpful because it blew air into me, but my problem wasn't.
That's not, if your brain is telling you not to suck it in, it won't do any good if it's blowing in or not.
Exactly. And so then they decided that I needed a different mask. So I've used 4 or 5 different masks, and it's kind of like I had a really mediocre reading teacher working for me once. And what she did, when the students wouldn't respond to the things that she was doing, she would say them louder.
Oh, yeah, because that's going to help.
And that's what I used to think was happening with the different masks. They were just trying it louder, and it didn't work. And when they gave me medication to try and keep me asleep, it just made me feel hungover.
Oh, yeah.
And so that didn't work and still doesn't work. And so I can't, energy-wise, sustain a full-time job, and I certainly can't teach in the way that I was used to. And so I'm just kind of battling through, hoping I find something before apparently dementia is the long-term impact of.
Sure, because you need the sleep.
Exactly. And so that's what is going to. One doctor told me that's what's going to kill me if I don't get something to work. So we'll see what happens. I'm just hoping, science does its thing and catches up.
Cells, is that something that a stem cell transplant could help with?
I would be open to just about anything.
Yeah.
At this point. Yeah. And so then I had 2 groups of doctors. One group said, no, you've had this your whole life. You just thought it was normal and you fought through it. And another group of doctors said, no, you had some kind of traumatic brain injury. And so that's what caused this. And that's why all of a sudden you're noticing it. So that's not even clear to me which is which, but I guess it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that something works, and hopefully pretty soon. So
yeah, and so if you don't dangle your kids out the window and drop them on their head, okay? just to be sure.
Right.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that at all. So, but you seem like you're a person that can make chicken salad out of chicken poop, and you kind of do what I used to do. You work at a card store or a sports store, and talk about that for.
Yeah, well, a former student of mine was gracious enough to offer me a position. He knew my financial situation was, I mean, I've lost everything. I lost my retirement. I lost my savings. I lost, so there was nothing left. And so I didn't really know how I was going to kind of piece this together, but a former student came along and offered me a position, just part-time, doing whatever I could do to help his store, which is it's the biggest sports collectible store I've ever seen. It's 1/3 of an old Blockbuster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's cards, but it's also memorabilia. And since I was collecting, I learned that the market has changed 100%, 1,000%. And so I've been learning, but I have lots more to learn, and it's been interesting, and it sort of dovetails with the gaming. In fact, I just got back from a afternoon Apnea tournament that I did at the store.
Oh, wow.
So it was fun, and it's something that I can sort of bring to the table with my experience, and so I was happy to do that. And we've done pine tar things, and we've done stratomatic things, and so we just kind of rotate through them. And
how's the turnout for that? The card store, the sports store I worked at, did Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. Yu-Gi-Oh stuff.
Yeah,
we were getting 30 kids for those.
Yeah, today there were 6. There's it depends on what we're doing. Like if it's when we've done pine tar rollouts, we've gotten 4 or 5 people. But like the Wisconsin Apnea tournaments that I run gets anywhere between 10 and 20.
That's great.
So it's exciting to kind of get people together and make connections with people, and it seemed like a natural fit I thought for a card store. So it's been a good thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, oops. And so, hit the right button, Ron. So Todd B., who is the world's biggest George Hendrick fan, if you've watched my thing.
Yes, I have, actually.
Yeah. His love of George Hendrick is right up there with my love for Bucky Dent. Has it that? So probably like me, you had stopped collecting and then started again once you got in this place, or did you just keep
right?
Through,
I mean, there's a few.
Still printing 90 fleers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still mostly a classic kind of collector, 70s, 60s, 50s. But the hobbies changed a lot, and the quality of the product is much better, and the photography is.
But you pay for it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's true. And so there's a lot of. And nobody talks about, like I used to, completing the set.
It's not what it's about anymore, isn't it?
Right. So
I was stunned by that. I was absolutely, first of all, $1.95 for a pack of tops, which I thought was incredibly dumb. And then everyone wants the inserts. Those were the ones I used to throw out as a kid, except for the Rack Pack All-Stars.
And you can spend.
Oh yeah. There's divorces that could be tossed in there if you with what you want to spend.
Yes. So it's a world away from what I was used to, but it's been fun.
I don't think I could ever have Russell's autograph. Yeah, we had memorabilia and jerseys and autographs and T-shirts and all that. So, but yeah, as Todd B says, it's all about the hits, baby.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, And so when you had more time, when you weren't busy trying to figure out how to run a school, is that when your gaming restarted, or did you game all through that?
Well, I gamed all through that.
Gamed all through that. So
Sometimes not as much, but I was never more than probably 2-3 weeks doing some serious rolling.
and so as an adult going through, let's say, your master's and teaching programs, what were you playing?
Stratomatic made its way with me through to adulthood. And as I got into my 40s, I got back into APA a little bit and met some people that also played, and that was also reinforcing for it. And I learned more about how APA worked and the numbers behind it, which I was interested in and never really understood before.
I like it now.
Yeah. It didn't do well my first go round, but the second time it did.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah. And I did my computer gaming phase, the PC version of Strat and APA, and
so
I don't like it. And so I'm back to cards and dice full time.
81 is when Fleer and Donruss started. When they took away Topps exclusivity, broke my heart. I remember the stamps.
Oh, sure, you bet.
God, they tasted terrible.
Yeah, they were nasty.
Yeah. Okay. So, and so how did you find? I mean, usually when I ask this question, it's Al. Was it Al you found first? I'm contractually obligated to ask that question, So when you found those of us who were streaming things, who was it that you found, and what did you find that was interesting? Or why were you looking for it?
What I was looking for was information about tournaments. What I wanted to find out was some ideas for the APA tournaments that I was running, and to see if anyone was doing anything online or talking about how they set them up online. And when I did that, I found your 1964 games.
Uh-oh. Clear didn't do gum. They did logo stickers.
Right. Yep. So that was my first. It was my first game that I saw was the Phillies and the Cubs that you did from '64, and I think it was. I don't think it was at Wrigley.
Oh God, there was one game I did, and I made the mistake of calling it Schley Park. And I'll still get comments once in a while. It's Connie Mack.
Oh, nice. Yes. Very nice.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. So, and then that just kind of kept me going. And then there were other games that I had heard of that I didn't know anything about. And I started searching for those. Payoff Pitch was one that I'd heard of but didn't know anything about, and the roster card, and
I like roster card.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why.
It's very quick. You can. I've kind of adapted the base running rules to whatever I feel like at that particular point in time. And so I can do it with just a ball score on the screen. And what I've done, doing a 67 Red Sox replay. I can take, because I bought everything. I spent the $100. I'm sure you helped with that. I bought everything. I bought the whole 118 years that he did. And with that, Ron, would you like the Excel helper to go with it? You haven't figured out how to use the Excel helper? Well, I can drag the Excel helper stuff or the team sheets into Microsoft Word. And so what I do is I put the Red Sox in the middle, and then in a week, I put one team at the top and the other team at the bottom and just kind of scroll. And so, yeah, so roster card does great for that.
And there, there hasn't been any, that's the thing. There's so many new takes on this, and you can't call them like I used to in the old days, call them just knockoffs of APA or knockoffs of Strat. They kind of have a new take on things.
They're quite, if you've played any of Greg Solvad's games, and they're all good. Valhalla is exceptional. If you enjoyed the Sherco part and the complex part, we talked a little bit about Ballpark off the air. That I've done with a helper, and I've been told that payoff pitch is being converted to either a helper or a computer.
Interesting.
And that's the one game I look at going, yeah, because there's the variability that you talked about when we started the show about, what should a pitcher do? And so a pitcher can do 4 or 5 different things, and then the batters can react differently from that.
Right. Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so there's this really is the golden age of sports sims, as people kind of, oh my God, what's going to happen? Well, this is it. This is it right now.
Right. So I totally agree. Yes.
So you found us that way then. Well, I'm glad you did.
Yes.
And so specifically, I got to post something that Clinton wrote, because there, this is where you either love or hate the DH. We can tell you, Clinton, that there will be no DH in this tournament because it's all 60s teams.
That's right.
And we'll get to that in a few. So you obviously not being able to sleep very well, and the fact that your mind probably doesn't shut off because now you're hyper aware of that, come up with some ideas. And so let's walk through how you originally found me, which is, Ron, would you I'm going to select the lineups. Would you please play the 2018 Brewers versus the 1982 Brewers and make me feel better that the older team is the better team?
Right. So
you ran into Shakeen and someone else that was an absolute buzzsaw, and I'm not even sure that the 27 Yankees could have beat Shakeen in that game when he threw a 2-hitter through 7 or something like that.
Right. And yeah. So, and I know from teaching philosophy that growth of knowledge isn't linear. So just, we don't necessarily know more now than we knew before. But I have had this theory for some time that Bill James and the sabermetric revolution changed the game. And that what the effect of that is that not only based on the strategies that are used in the game, but also the player performances that are a result of those things becoming sort of accepted knowledge, accepted wisdom, that a walk truly is as good as a hit. Mm-hmm. And enough with the damn bunting already. And things like that over time, what we would see is better and better performances by players. And so my theory has been that must mean that today's game, today's players, today's teams must be in some way a little bit better at the game than teams in previous decades. And if we go back enough decades, my thought was we'd see a difference there. And that was what I wanted you to test.
Even it's over like 4 or 5 different game engines, and I did it for you in Action PC, the original Brewer, the 18 and the 82 Brewers.
Right. And so I used APA and I used Strat and I used Deep Drive to test out the same theory.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that interests me a lot. I do yell at the kids to get off my lawn, but I'm not a huge fan of what baseball's become necessarily. But it just seems to me like if the game isn't better in some way, performance-wise, then sabermetrics has really been a dud, and no one should be practicing it. And Theo should go home and all that stuff. And so I'm just interested in those types of questions, and that's why I asked you to run some tests yourself, even though the sample size is really, really small.
It's way too small, but my thought is that what came out of it was the revolution of the bullpen. And that when we could document evidence that a pitcher going through the lineup the fourth time through would turn into Cinderella's pumpkin in a lot of cases, that's when you're, first the one inning, gone from the fireman to the one inning closer, which really was Dave Smith with the Astros in '86. He was a one inning closer for them. People say that it was Eckersley, and of course Eckersley became famous for it. But it was really was it Lanier in '86 for Houston?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And he was also famous for how they used outs, because they were saying that they used outs very creatively to advance base runners. So that was another piece. But yes.
Right. And so I think that revolution came out of sabermetrics and the Wade Boggs. I mean, the walk really was as good as a hit. I mean, my dad would say that all the time when he coached softball. Walk's as good as a hit. Walk's as good as a hit. And then once pitches were charted, and I mean, the game has evolved into look, I don't need you to go 9 innings anymore. I need you to pitch to 27 batters and throw as hard as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get me through 6, I'm going to take it. I've got the arms in the bullpen who are going to only go to 3 or 4 batters. That, I think, is a direct result of sabermetrics. And the fact that there's so much video out there. I mean, you can't pitch to contact anymore.
Right.
And that, I think, is a result of sabermetrics, because if you leave it in the zone, the only difference between a pitch at 90 and 95 that's flat is how many rows further back will the 95 mile an hour go than the 90. I also think the balls are juiced as hell.
Right. Yes.
And that's, but, so I think those are the type, more of a football gameplay or strategy thing now with baseball than it ever was before. Even though Davey Johnson did use computers with the Mets, I'm not sure who snorted off the keys, whether it was Doc or Davey or even Dwight or Daryl. But yes, I mean, I think the one thing that sabermetrics has done is certainly hardened and defined roles, and somehow lost, I think, one of the most needed pieces in any baseball team, which is a long reliever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that came up. I mean, if you go back to my '82 the playoff replay, what would the Orioles have done without Storm Davis in that replay? Here's a guy that could just go sit there and come in the third inning and eat 3 or 4 innings, save the rest of your pen, and I mean, it got Baltimore all the way to Game 6 of the World Series.
Yeah, I don't think they really beat the Angels. Do you? I mean, if without him, or at least without him pitching as well as he did, I don't think they would have beaten California.
No, yeah. I don't either. And Clinton talks about the widening the strike zone, and of course they lowered the mound in '69, and the DH, I think, was a big save baseball from the '60s.
Right.
Because what was it? Gibson had a 1.12 ERA in '68 and lost 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell do you have an ERA under 1.25 and lose anything? It is beyond me. But
and '72 was almost as bad, and people forget that.
Right. So yes, I think does it make for a better? I don't. There's kind of one of the things I've learned about baseball and covering it, and now having access to things like Baseball Reference, and that is that the romantic notion that you and I grew up with, that you could look at a number from 1925 and it would be the same as 1985, is a load of nonsense. It, just like with every other sport, it comes and goes in different eras, and we went from the high offense of the turn of the century into a good run from probably about 2007 to 2015, where batters and pitchers were pretty good in balance. And I think the 80s were a pretty good balanced decade too, to now where it's homers and strikeouts. And that's not, to me, a very exciting game.
I totally agree. Yep.
Action PC baseball, something you own?
No,
No.
I don't. No. But in fact, I had never heard of it before I started watching your stuff.
You've just brought up every other point that we've made during the 8,000, the podcast and everything else. Like, I don't understand why these companies don't do more publicizing of their stuff.
Right. It's a great point. I mean, being a really well-kept secret is still a secret. So
exactly.
So I don't understand it, but it's but yes, I'm going to be buying it and trying it out, because it's the only way that I'm going to really be able to test the theories that I've got about how the game has changed.
I think it's going to be easier for you to do that sort of thing. I mean, there's not many. I mean, as Braves for Life kind of goes on to what we're saying, I think you can do some of that now at the park, but now the park tries to be everything for all people, and I just don't. It's great if you want to do what ifs, but yeah, I think Action PC and everything's on sale all the time.
Right.
I think the game will evolve to a batter at least trying to make contact with two strikes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see. I don't think 4 or 5 inning starters are going to be commonplace for aces. A good pitch, the Justin Verlanders and Max Scherzers are never going to go away. And I'm not sure that a staff can take an opener. You can't do that often. I mean, Colorado tried it a few years ago with 3 inning starters, and it backfired because your team gets tired. The whole Cleveland Indian thing a few years ago, instead of using Miller as a closer, using him in the 6th, the old fireman thing. Everything old is new again.
Yep. And I think the other part that's going to be a limiting factor is that you're not going to be able to pay these people as much as they're going to want if you're relying on your whole staff, or as many pitchers as it seems like would be needed to make an opener strategy used on a very wide scale work for a franchise.
I don't know how nationally teams can survive with 12 batters and 13 pitchers.
Yes.
How do you get a bench unless you add the DH, which I think there's a whole nother argument. How do you do that? One of the things when I covered the Nationals was, we're used to 15 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
And you had 4 or 5 starters, or 4 starters, the Swiss Army knife or the MacGyver guy, if you will, the guy that would start the doubleheader or eat the 3 or 4 innings. Right. And then you had your pan. And how do you not shorten your bench?
Well, I guess, the one thing that we've seen is that you have Scott Kingery or you have Hernan Perez who can play multiple positions and maybe save you a roster spot for hitters. But I agree with you that I don't know as a manager how I would really do 13 players. And I think 13 pitchers, and I don't think 12 is much better. Not only are you not getting people the work that they need to really be effective as a pitcher, but you are, like you say, if you get an injury that's just a day-to-day thing, now you got a real problem. And so you're right. I don't see how it's really sustainable. And maybe
if a 13 position player roster, and you have the 9 or the 8 fielders, and then the catcher, the Jose Lobatones of the world,
right?
Couldn't hit their way out of a paper bag if you ripped a hole in 2 sides of it. And then, basically you have outside of your catcher, you have a 3-man bench.
Mm-hmm. You have a catcher. You have, I guess, an outfielder.
You got to have an outfielder and an infielder, and then you get stuck like what Washington did trying to get Wilmer Defoe to play in the outfield. And that was
Yeah, and I don't think I mean I don't think it's really going to stop until it gets to 14 and 11, and then
It should be 14 and 11.
no pitchers.
Oh,
Pitcher. And then I think at that point, I think organizations will start to rethink. But I don't see it stopping until it's 14 and 11. So I don't know.
I don't know, but it's weird. It's weird. So yeah, I would get that, and then you can do set up the schedules to do a full season. Right. I mean, if you're from Glenn Guzzo, who is probably done more for Stratomatic than maybe Hal.
Yeah.
When especially with the Strat Journal, I was reading one of his things over at on Delphi, and someone talking about stats in the season, and he says not 600 at bats is not enough of a sample size to give you a good indication, even though that's what most players get. You need 10,000 in order to get a good weighted representation. And so I think you find that when you do get that, I'd be interested to figure that out. It's changed the game, and I think in some ways it's good, but again, it's everything's kind of specialized now. It's kind of like when we were kids and watched football, and you had the 22 starters and your quarters who could maybe not play lineman but play linebacker, and then run everyone else out in special teams. And now everything is, if you don't weigh 350 pounds, you're not an offensive lineman.
Right. That's right.
Which brings up a whole nother kettle of fish. Here, Bobby says hi to you as well. All right. If you guys got any questions for Curt? And now, okay, so Braves for Life is chomping at the bit to add some teams here. So you've had some time to think about it.
Yes.
Who are the 4 teams that you want?
Well, the first thing I wanted to do was to pick the last 4. But if I had a vote,
you're paying the freight here, so you tell me what you.
Well, my thinking is these are some of the rules.
Okay.
1 per franchise, just like the that 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So we won't have 3 Cardinal teams, even though there's 3 Cardinal World Series teams.
Mm-hmm.
We won't have multiple Yankee teams. I think that looking at the decade, I think that 4 slots for National League and 4 slots for American League works very, very nicely. I don't think that the leagues were really unbalanced in that decade, at least as far as I can tell.
No.
And so I think that'll be just fine. And so we can set them up so that there's an eventual World Series between the National League and the American League.
Okay.
I think that there is a case to be made that the 63 Yankees are the ones that should represent the Yankee organization in that decade and not the 61s. But I'm going to leave that open and see what happens in the poll.
I had it written down as a matter. I was typing that out. So pick your 4 teams.
Okay. So my 4 teams are the 68 Tigers, the 67 Red Sox, the 63 Dodgers, and the 60 Pirates. And then, like you said, we're opening it up and see what people think. I've left some out there that are
up again. 68 Tigers.
Right. So
it's 67 because Uncle Ron can type 67 Red Sox. So you get 2 American League teams left.
Right.
And Curt's National League teams are the 63 Dodgers.
Right.
And the 60 Pirates.
Right. So
Clinton Parks says 69 O's. And the 61 Reds. 61 actually, Appachatter won the. Okay. So we get 2 teams. Braves for Life. If you're still here. No, Clinton, you can't pick all 4, Clinton. You can't pick all 4. All right. So, and we've already picked the Dodgers. He's not even listening. All right, but 69 O's and 61 Reds would be good choices.
Got to resolve the Yankee problem.
But I'm surprised. 63 is interesting because they're the team that got blown out by the Dodgers.
Right. But if you look at the team, and the problem was the injuries.
Yeah, okay.
But if you're not concerned about the injury,
5 and 6.
the team was much deeper than any other Yankee team because of the injuries and because they brought up good pieces that they could plug in. And so if you look at it from that perspective, I think there's a case, and 61, I think, has some serious problems that people don't look at. But the pitching staff is pretty horrible. Bobby
The Yankees were never a good pitching team, which I don't think people realize.
Yeah.
They did okay, and they could score it well. But when you look at the all-time win leaders for that team, and Andy Pettitte and Roger Clemens are on the top of the list.
Yeah. Red Ruffing, and that's it. So I like the 63 team a lot. I think there's something to be said for it. And I think that the 61 team has holes, like every team does, but especially for a great team, they have holes. And so I'd be interested to see what people think.
Okay. I kind of like so we have 6. We've added the 69 Mets and the 61 Yankees. And I like Apachatter's argument here for the 65 Reds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there won't be a DH, Clint. You don't have to worry about that. I'm surprised there wasn't 69 Orioles. So we're looking for the last team, I think, right? 69 Mets, 61 Yankees. I would think, I'm surprised, the 64 Orioles were quite good.
Yes.
The 60 Orioles almost upset the Yankees. That was their first
year.
They don't really have any pitching. And, of course, the 66 Orioles plowed through Koufax and Drysdale.
That's right. Admittedly at the end, but still,
but no one knew it was the end of Koufax, and certainly wasn't the end of Drysdale. Drysdale had that great 68.
And people haven't mentioned the Twins yet, which is interesting to me. But
they were criminally underrated. I've done some stuff with and the 62 Giants. I think though that would give us some too many, and I think let me go through these again. We're going to take we need one of each. One right. American League and one National League. Because the Mets and the Yankees
or the Orioles. Right.
I think we probably would take them. Right. Clinton asked for the 69 Orioles, but let's see what people asked for.
Okay.
So I need one more of each, and I kind of like the 65. See, Brace for Life now said 60s. Yeah. I think I might take the 65 Reds as a wild card. Because it'd be kind of curious, because then, of course, there was only one representative per league up until 69. And I don't think anyone is going to make an argument for the 69 Braves or the Twins.
No. But we could do a play-in game.
We could. We're getting a couple of votes here for the 66 Orioles. That was Frank's first year in there. And that was before Palmer got hurt. Palmer got hurt in 67.
Right.
So I'm seeing now a couple of votes for the 66 Orioles. And I'm 64 Giants would be a good team too. That was May's probably best year in San Francisco.
Yeah, they were loaded. And McCovey had sort of established himself by then, right? And no one has mentioned that evil red team to the south of me.
The evil red team to the south of you. The White Sox?
St. Louis.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. And there's a lot to choose from.
Yes. So the chat is kind of silenced itself. So we need one American League team and one National League team. What about the 64 Tigers? 64 White Sox?
Mm-hmm.
61 Tigers, 64 Twins, 67 Cardinals.
67 Twins almost won it too. They were very, very good.
Rod Careau's rookie year. Well, we could do this. We could do 2 play-in games.
Sure.
We'll do 1 American League and 1 National League. No, I'm not doing a 16-team tournament.
No.
No. But we will do that. All right. So, 64 was good in both leagues, Clinton, because the Orioles and the White Sox hung with the Yankees all the way.
That's right.
And
you
did
can make
Bert
the
Robbins
case.
win the MVP?
I think so.
All right. So I see 2 votes for the 67 Cardinals.
Interesting.
Which I'm surprised. But everyone who is not watching this is knowledgeable enough to know the 68 Cardinals can't hit.
Right. No matter what game engine you're using.
Right. And I don't think they're going to do very well in this. Would do very well in this engine. They would,
But 64 has some offense, but no one ever really thinks of them. Although I suppose you could make the case that they might have been as low as the 3rd best team in the National League that year. But
yeah, I mean, they just kind of got in because Gene Monk blew it. Let's be honest. It was the first time that Monk blew it, and it certainly wasn't the last time he blew it. Right. The 64 Orioles did not win the pennant. No, I'm not playing the 62 Mets. Okay. 67 Cardinals I could do. Well, I got 2 votes for the 67 Cardinals. No, they did not have to win the pennant.
Nope. No rules like that.
No rules like that. So it's the Cardinal team that, I mean, we're taking the 65 Reds. And I got to sit there and figure out how to rank them all afterwards. But so we need 2 more American and 2 more National. There we go.
Yeah.
So if you want to see the Giants, now's the time to say so.
Mm-hmm.
Because how can you do a best of the 60s tournament and not have Willie Mays?
Yeah, and yeah. I mean, I almost picked him in my set of 4, but I wanted the Pirates in there, and I was afraid nobody would pick him.
Yeah, and that's that World Series, the Yankees scored 55 runs in 7 games and lost.
Yep.
Which
and
one?
I think.
Okay, 62 Giants.
There they are.
All right. Yeah, I think you got to take the 62 Giants. 64 Phillies are not already in, so we can argue back and forth. Do you want to see the Phillies or the Cardinals? Because the 62 Giants are in.
I wanted to tell you that the sound that you made when Mark Sullivan came up to bat in your Bob Stanley game is one that I think everyone needs to work on and perfect, to use not overuse, but use at just the right moment. And I think this is one of those times because, boy, when I think Cardinals, I think Mark Sullivan noise.
What did I do?
It was a cross between ugh and that other noise that you make that goes ugh. So you somehow cut yourself off, and it was a unique thing. But it spoke volumes. It was brilliant. So I don't want to be the guy to pick whether the Cardinals get in or not, because.
Well, we got 2 votes for 67, 1 vote for 68. And someone really wants a 64 Phils.
So we're talking about the play-in game, right? So who's
I'm not. I think we're going to go with 67.
Okay.
67 keeps getting the love here. So let me see. Okay, so we got 67 Cardinals, 69 Mets. Make sure I come on. And you picked 60 Pirates. 63 Dodgers. And 62 Giants. And so I think that 67 Cardinals, 69 Mets, and then those three.
Okay.
So you pick who's going in the play-in game.
Oh wait, and did we say the Reds or not?
Oh, and the 65 Reds. Oh wait, that gives us 6. 6 for 5.
Oh, that's no good then.
We could do the 65 Reds in the play-in game.
Yeah.
Who are we taking out of that? 67 Cardinals, 69 Mets, 60 Pirates, 63 Dodgers, or 62 Giants?
Well, I'd put the Cardinals in there.
There you go. All right. So 67 Cards versus 65 Reds. Oops. Helps if I hit the right button. 67 Cards. The 65 Reds. Okay. Now. No, not playing the 62 Angels. All right. So now we need 2 American League teams. We have a Red Sox. We have a Yankees. Did we get an agreement on which Orioles team? Because there's some good ones there.
I don't think so.
There are some Tigers teams that are good.
You know, that Angels team actually is. They gave the Yankees a scare in '62.
Yes, but no 68 team could hit. Never had a 20-minute game stream before.
That's a lot of time to kill.
That's a lot of time to kill. So we went with 61 Yanks, 67 Sox. I think those are the only 2 confirmed teams. All right, so okay, gang, which Orioles team you want? 64,
the 68 Tigers are in there too.
69, or 64, 66, or 69, and they won't be subject to a play-in game. 1 vote for 66. Now 61 Yanks were chosen. Who was the other AL team you took?
The Tigers.
61?
68 Tigers.
Okay. Okay, so 61 Yanks, 67 Sox, and 68 Tigers. Two votes for 66, 1 vote for 69. So need if you really want the 69 Orioles, now's the time to say so. So we're gonna have a Yankee team, a Red Sox team, an Oriole team, a Tiger team. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so now we need a play-in thing. So I've got a nomination for the 61 Angels.
61?
62.
Oh, okay.
62 Angels. I'm going to go with 66 unless someone else asks for 69. It's a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
And I can certainly see why someone actually wants me to do a 64 replay next year. I actually did like the first half of that. You're gonna make okay. It's gonna be 66. Oh, and I'll do it. 62 Angels. So Clinton got his team. And who are the Angels playing, Curt, in the playing game?
Well, it can't be the Tigers. It can't be the Yankees.
Oh, the Yankees would kill him.
Can't be the Orioles.
67 Sox.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be good. That's going to be a good game, actually.
So those are the playing games. Angels, Sox, and I forget the other.
The Reds and the Cardinals.
Reds and the Cardinals. All right. Well, I'll have to go through and watch this later and write down everything, and we'll set it up. But we'll do the Reds and the Cardinals tomorrow at 4 Eastern.
Okay.
And that will be the start of that. And so there you go. All right. So if you're joining us late, Curt is a Patreon of mine who has bought a bunch of games, and his suggestion was to do that 60s tournament. He liked Dave Little's 70s tournament so much that we're going to do it for the 60s. And so we're going to do playoff games and then best of one, and then for the World Series. No, it'll be one off. It'd be one off until the final. We did the final, by the way, was best of 3.
Okay. That's right.
And I like that. I mean, having Brooks Robinson with a walk-off. I mean, that 9th inning with Stargell beating the bullpen again. That Oriole bullpen was just...
Yeah.
Which I thought was going to win the series. And then Robinson hitting the walk-off off to Colby. If there was one pitcher from that era that you wouldn't think would do that, would have been Mr. Elbows himself.
Exactly.
And so there you go. So
great.
Cardinals tomorrow is what we're going to do. And then it probably won't be a permanent Sunday at 4 thing. Because we're going to run into the NFL within 2 weeks. And I may not watch a lot of NFL, but I know better against an NFL game.
Yeah.
No one's gonna do that. So we'll probably do but tomorrow will be the Reds and the Cardinals. So that should be Bob Gibson against 4 Eastern time tomorrow. Is it Mahoney or Maloney?
I would say so.
Yeah, I think so. And no DHs, of course, for the whole thing.
Nope.
So now that you've gotten a chance to meet Curt, who surprisingly doesn't talk a lot during the games, if you guys got any questions for Curt about his sleep struggle or his career or his love of baseball, you still follow football, basketball? Are you a Packer Buck fan or?
I mean, no, I don't watch the NFL. After I read the Jim McMahon article, that was it for me.
Really?
Yeah, that was all I needed to read.
What about it scared you?
His wife having to pin his phone number onto his jacket before he left the house. That did it for me. I wasn't a huge fan of the guy, although I enjoyed watching him play. But if that can happen to somebody, putting aside all the people that have died, it's just not worth watching.
That's what did it not. Okay, a couple things here before we get into that, because here's a good question.
I have not. I have not. But I have read that may be helpful. So,
Okay. In Vermont, it's like completely legal. In fact, there's like 4 places that sell it in my city.
oh, yes, it's legal here now too.
Yeah, I'm sure for medicinal.
Right. I'm in Brookfield now. I used to be in Waukesha.
Ah. All right.
Well, Carbo's home run in Game 6 is my best baseball memory, and boy, I've lost some of the things that I used to know, and that's very, very frustrating. But the YouTube has been a godsend for me to kind of remember a lot of stuff, and so that's where I go. And so old games.
Treasure trove. All right. Back to the football thing.
Yeah.
And who was it? Maybe it was Butkus. Watching him trying to walk, or the memory things, and seeing the people that I've watched as a teenager, in the mid '80s, start to die in their 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be 48 in November. I'm 47. Average life expectancy of an NFL player is 53. And what are we doing? And this was back when you could be, when Refrigerator Perry was considered a big boy. And today he'd be tiny or relatively so. And so what's going to happen to these people now that, if getting hit by 285-pound people did that to people, what's going to happen with a generation of people who played and got hit by 350-pound people?
Yeah.
And
I don't get what's entertaining about it, but
I stopped playing fantasy football. I came back to take over my dad's team the year that he died, and I didn't louse that up. So he won a championship, and but beyond that, I'll watch once in a while, but that's about it. It's not. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go, Braves for Life. So tomorrow at 4 we'll do a live stream. All right. More questions for Curt. And the CBD oil idea is a good one. I know that Sarah does that. My wife has terrible back pain. She's been a LNA or a CNA, depending on what part of the country you're in, what they call them, nurse's aide, for 20 some odd years. And her back is just destroyed. She walks around sometimes like an NFL quarterback, in her mid 40s. Okay, here's a good one from Todd. It's the Spinner games, right?
Oh, like All-Star Baseball?
I think so, yeah.
Way back. Yes. Mid to late 70s.
Yeah, okay, yep.
But boy, if you haven't read the Jim McMahon interview, do yourself a favor and go read it. And then
I knew that light bothered him a great deal.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah. Spinner games. I can't imagine that would have gone over well with a group of people.
No. And 3 of the 4 of us were pitchers. So you can't pitch in All-Star Baseball. So they're not very important. So we took that kind of hard.
I would agree with that, Ken.
I'd buy that one.
Yep. I have no trouble playing football. I'm looking forward to the season that I'm about to start. But as far as, yeah.
I mean,
that's interesting. It's interesting, and sad. Junior Seau's death really affected me too, because he came across. I mean, the perfect football name, Seau, and just had that love of life that you saw, and then for him to die by his own hand.
pretty articulate guy. There was a lot
Yep.
going on up there. And yeah, so yeah.
I'm not sure what Clinton's asking here. We talked a little bit in the beginning about what you Stratomatic and the Dombrov and
Yeah, the 80s scene, I have not, Clinton, no. But I'd certainly go back and take a look. That's sounds good. In very limited amounts, yes.
is there, I mean, you talked a little bit before about how we talked a bit about Christy Mathewson and stuff. Is there a storyline from that era that intrigues you, like 8 Men Out, or just how good that George Ruth person was, or what Connie Mack did in Philadelphia and all that, or
Well, 8 Men Out does interest me a lot, and it interests me more because my master's was in constitutional law, and I got real interested in how much due process these guys got, either legally or in terms of what Landis did to them. But the dead ball period that I really am interested in is the Negro Leagues, and I find that to be a lot more, for a ton of reasons, to be a lot more interesting period. I mean, there's nothing like Negro League baseball in the 30s. I'll grant you that. But there were so many good players going on in the dead ball era too that are not remembered as well. And so I think those games are really, and you read about the history there and how these guys would travel and get to the places they needed to be and put up with the stuff they had to put up with. That's the dead ball stuff that I really enjoy reading about.
Is there another era from a time that maybe you don't remember, because you obviously remember some stuff from way back that intrigues you the most from, let's say, pre-75?
The 60s until about 6 months ago were totally dead to me.
Okay.
Now I can't get enough of them.
Why is that?
I don't know why that is, really, except that I think it's because the more turned off I get by walk, strikeout, home run baseball, the more interested I am in stolen base, defensive fundamentals, and the amazing blend of Hall of Famers that exist in that decade. So there's all kinds of baseball going on there, and I think it gets short shrift because the 70s were so awesome. But I think the 60s are really, really, really interesting, and there's a lot there to learn. I've read some of Carol Conklin's books about the 60s, and he's written short books about the team, about the players in each of the organizations, the main players. Mm-hmm. And they've been really interesting to me. He also wrote a longer one called Indians' Pride about the Indians in the decade that I thought was really very interesting.
He's our big Indians fan. And yeah, I mean, did Tommy John?
Mm-hmm. Talk about teams. I mean, their 65 team could very, very easily have won that league that year. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Colavito, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there.
I suppose, Mr. Todd, if you drove up to wherever this store is and asked for the schmuck that was on with the fat kid in the wheelchair, that there might be a discount given. But, like me, they spin the wheel. You could all maybe even pay 20% more. Code word is George Hendrick rules.
Yeah, George Hendrick did terrible things to my Brewers in '82, so I'm not a huge fan either.
I'm sure you've read Boys of Summer and the Summer Game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
The 60s to me it's kind of the idyllic, John Updike lyric ballpark thing in 1960, and by 1969 there's AstroTurf, and there's playoffs, and there's divisions, and I mean, it really just like the country. It just was so different from one end of the decade to the next. And the '70s kind of started off as dull as dishwater.
Yeah.
And then you end up with Reggie in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't dull as dishwater at the, oh, don't you start that. Don't you start that, Chris. That's a good way to be banned. Wisconsin fan, are you?
Badger basketball, you bet.
Oh, Badger basketball. I was trying to get you to say something about college football to shut up the Ohio State fans that invade my chat.
Oh, well, there again, it just kind of kills me that we're doing high school kids on this game too. But okay. I don't know. It's just crazy.
All right. I'm just giving Chris a hard time. They start this Ohio chant every time, and they know I'm a Michigan person, but Michigan hasn't beaten Ohio State in 10,000 years, so it's a running gag through there. So I was trying to get some help with that, but it's okay.
No, sir.
No, sir. Basketball, their basketball team is good. You follow college hoops at all, or no?
The Badgers, I do.
Okay.
Big Ten, but the rest of it waits until March Madness.
Did you have a favorite basketball player growing up?
Oh, yeah, Brian Winters of the Bucks.
It's interesting because that was someone I had never heard of until I went to a card collecting forum, and there was someone who had the PSA Master top ranked, or maybe the only Brian Winters set. And I went and looked him up. I went, oh my God.
Yeah. And if they had drawn the 3-point line just a little bit sooner, he would add a lot more points.
So, yeah. So there's someone that doesn't get any recognition out of the state of Wisconsin.
Right. Yep. Marcus Johnson, too. Big Marcus Johnson guy. Okay.
Clinton, that's a good way to get you being. And I did a birthday special for you, big boy. You see what I got to put up with? It's bad enough. It's bad enough between the Bucky Dent stuff. And
it's not unlike being a teacher. I got to say, you really got to keep them at bay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. You've all been warned. You've all been warned. I'm gonna break down at one point and just find the worst 45 players in Ohio State history and stick them against Tom Brady, and you're gonna be sorry. Don't make me stop this car. Don't make me stop this car. High school stuff. I mean, it's one of the changes I've noticed in athletics between our time and today is that kids play one sport and they play it year round, and high school doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
You obviously taught high school, or what's your thoughts on that?
I coached baseball and basketball in high school, and it's terrible, first of all, but second of all, what it does is it puts a ridiculous financial strain on families, which I think is dumb.
Yes.
And the third thing is that young athletes don't learn how to deal with pressure situations in a variety of environments. And I think that's bad. Because you may not be an athlete your whole life, but you will be dealing with pressure situations your whole life.
Absolutely. And there's just people just aren't really prepared for that.
Right. So if you don't live in a warm climate, that means you're really going to be traveling a lot to specialize in your one sport year round. And I don't get the benefit, really. I mean, maybe there's some data on it that I haven't seen, but I don't buy it. I wouldn't do it. If I thought my child was going to be a superstar athlete in one area or another, the last thing I would do is to bury them on club teams and have them travel around the country and not experience the other things that might be interesting or helpful.
I think it's one of the reasons why when we have these conversations, whether it's you and I or whether it's some of the other people that I'm ignoring in the chat right now because you made me all very angry. I'm kidding, is that we all had the well-rounded experience. We didn't just watch one sport. You guys didn't play just one sport. You got exposed to a variety of different things and other things besides sports. And you're right. How to deal with pressure situations is a huge deal because you'll always have to do it. And if you don't teach kids, whether it's through sports or other things, it doesn't necessarily have to be through sports, that you're going to make mistakes and you have to learn from those mistakes, then that doesn't bode well from the future. If everything is just kind of given to you, I suppose.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. But
that's exactly it. And it's not good for their bodies. So I don't know.
yeah, no, I had a cousin who threw curveballs when you weren't supposed to throw curveballs. And so you couldn't throw curveballs anymore. But someone I worked with at Fansided was a pitcher, and he needed shoulder surgery at 16 or 17 because they played 10 months a year.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. If you're having Tommy John surgery in high school, something's really wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was his favorite. I mean, baseball was my favorite. I wouldn't have been very good at it. Actually, I would have done a Homer Simpson and gotten hit a lot. And yet, play up in baseball. It's for his friends, for sure. All right, last call for questions for Curt, and then we're going to do the Reds at the Cardinals tomorrow afternoon at 4 Eastern, and then Curt and I will come up with a time that a regular slot for these games, sometime at night during the week, while he can watch. Favorite thing to collect?
60s baseball cards.
Interesting. Particular year?
62 and 64.
Okay, 62 is the wood border.
Right.
64
has the like the rectangles at the bottom.
Oh, okay. I like the 65s, the ones with a pennant.
Oh, those are good too. Yeah. Maybe it's those. I don't know.
No, but that's, you didn't say the 67, which I think are butt ugly.
Yes.
And
but what is cool is that next year Topps is going to do their heritage set with the 1971 model.
See, that's the year I was born. I'm about heritage. Behind that camera, there are boxes of heritage. And I would buy my 2 ever boxes and get crap hits. I never got an auto. I did pull a Billy Wagner jersey card with the Red Sox for that week he was there.
Wow.
I don't know. Todd, are you on Facebook? There you go. Okay, so best experience you've had in the store. If you had any athletes come in?
Not when I was there, but I would say the best experience is when dads and moms are bringing their kids in to start a collection. That's the best experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because they don't have to buy $1,200 boxes of cards.
Dave, I wasn't very good at lifting weights. That was the end of my football career too. All right. Todd, somehow you have to get an email swap, and I don't want to do that in public, but we'll figure that out because I bet there's some things that can be done.
Oh, and we have to talk pine tar sometime too.
Oh yeah. So before we go, because we've almost been at this 2 hours. You've helped with the design or develop new stuff for pine tar. Tell us about that. It's your first kind of behind the scenes for gaming.
Right. And it's been an amazing experience. James Formo asked me to help him put together an all-time franchise set. And so I've been involved in not only the creation of the cards, but the selection of some of the rosters. And it's been a very hard experience because we're trying to cut down hundreds and hundreds of players to 31. But it's been a lot of fun and a lot of work, and I've learned a lot. So, and I hope I've helped him some too. So, it's going to be coming out in 2 15-team chunks. We're creating manager cards for the first time. And the other part that we're looking at is a few minor rule changes, including looking at some special rules for the Rockies and helping them to look normal in Colorado and have other people deal with some challenges when they come to play the Rockies. So there's a lot of pieces there. I've been really excited about the manager part. I think that's going to be something that people are going to enjoy having as an optional part of their game. And so there's just so much there. It's been a lot of fun. And I've really liked, I've enjoyed talking with other people about, like you, Ron, about, who should be on the Red Sox,
That's a toughie. I mean, how do you cut the Yankees down to 31?
Exactly. Now we've limited it to the third or fourth best season of a player's career.
Okay. So how do you know?
So you're not going to get Ruth when he's just
Montiel and Mantle and
right.
You're not going to drop Ruth.
No. And so there's a lot there to think about. But
I mean, for shortstop, Crissetti, Rizzuto, Jeter, Dent was actually fairly decent, but probably not in there. I mean, so which one of those three do you drop?
Well,
you don't need to go. I mean, for catcher, Dickey, Berra, Posada, Munson. Pick two.
Well, it's tough. It's tough. But it's been fun, and it's going to be coming out in 15-team chunks with the extra stuff that I talked about. The first set, the first half of the set, probably looking at November, December, and then the second half about a month after that.
Excellent. So any rhyme or reason? Is it 15 American League, 15? Oh yeah, Kubek too. In there. In fact, two people said that. One season or an average of best years?
It depends upon what statistical category you're looking at. So if it's offensive, if it's the hitting piece, singles, doubles, triples, homers, that's going to be focused on 1 year. But their third or fourth best year, and if you're talking about the other things that hitters do, like bunt, steal bases, throw base runners out, play defense, that's looked at from a longer cross section, 2, 3, 4 years to try and get an accurate picture of what this guy could really do in those areas. So it's a combination.
All right. Now, you work in a store. I worked in a store. I tried to talk my guy into carrying stuff like the Stratomatic base stuff. Do you think that a card and dice game like Stratomatic would sell in a store like where you work?
It depends upon if I can get people to come for these tournaments and other events that I'm doing.
We talked about the tournaments, yeah.
Yeah. So if I can get a foot traffic in for those things, then the other games will sell. And that's what kind of my goal over the course of the next, 3, 4, 5 months is to get that traffic coming in, get those people finding out that they can buy stuff there, and then give them some shelf space. This is a big store, square footage wise. And so it's not like it's somebody's closet and what are you going to
do? Most card stores are closets.
Yes, that's right. And so space isn't going to be the issue, but I think it's doable. Yes. Short answer, yes. I think it's doable.
Well, while I give one last call for questions, what item is your white whale as far as collecting? Is it the 52 Mantle? Is it an Aaron rookie? Or
I think it would be having the brains to not steal the 52 mantle and then drive about 6 hours and try and sell it. That would be, if I could have anything, I would want those brains to have that. I don't know. I think
For you to own, not to turn around and sell, because that's how I feel about most of the modern stuff. Unless it was
a Clemente rookie would be. Yeah, I think that would be it.
Up long enough for you to read. And Fox says, if people play, I played History Maker at a local game store and people were falling over themselves to learn about it. If they ordered it or not, who knows? Have you played History Maker?
Interesting.
It's kind of a good introduction game because there's no stats on the cards. It's all traits.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying, but Baseball Demos, who I wish was here tonight, did an entire 87 Braves replay about it and with it, and came out very close. Like the batting average and ERA were within like a point or two from the real life.
Look at that, because I haven't seen those, but I want to look at that.
Okay.
See what he did.
He's got some good ones on his channel. If you should have, he's got a ton of subscribers. Clinton, I bought Stratomatic at KB in 1990, and somehow it came with extra players. Which I didn't realize that they did that in the stores. All right, so last call for questions again, and okay, so that's it. So Clemente rookie, in the 60s. What, as a kid, what was your favorite set of tops?
75, but I liked 71 too.
71 was the year I was born. And yes, I guess that makes me a kid for some people. And I have some of those. They're expensive as hell now.
Yeah, they are.
The black borders are tough.
Yep.
But I've 78. That was the year that actually the game kind of clicked for me, and packs for 20 cents a piece. And my mother left me 50 cents a day so I could buy a Coke and a pack of baseball cards, or a pack of baseball cards and a newspaper.
Nice.
Don't have those cards anymore. Yeah, Strat from KB. I never saw Appa in the store. Those were always the Street and Smith and Sporting News annuals.
Right. Me too.
For those. And Larry Harris bought the original Status Pro game at a sporting goods store in 1981. And if you watched my chat with Al last week, he was talking about there was a store down in his neck of the woods. He's in Western Mass. That they would order the games for him, and he'd harass them terribly, I'm sure. You know, like, did the game come in yet? Did the game come in? You know, the game come in yet? You call one more time, kid. I'm burning the game in front of you when it comes in. You know, because that. But yeah, so that's there. Todd. Oh. All right. The Joe Splotnick story there. Is that why you hate him? Is that why you hate him so much? He's with the Indians then too, right?
I think so, yeah. The Padres period, I don't think it started by that point.
Yeah, so Ken drove to the company.
Wow.
That's amazing. Did Sites harass you?
What's that?
Asking Ken if Sites harassed him.
Oh, yeah. I've heard he's charming.
He was, charming in the case in the realm of Carlton Fisk and Bucky Dent.
I'm a fan of irony.
Yes, it makes sense now. I wondered all through the end of that replay, and of course the Cardinals didn't do very well, so we didn't have a lot of Hendry games. He'd rag on him, and I'm like, what the hell did he do to you to do that? And I'm like, hey. He was card number 660 that year, that was the one he needed. He had 659 and needed that.
Those high numbers, they can be killers.
75 though was the second year that they all came out at once.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, Dick Williams had not very nice things to say about him, didn't he?
Hendrick?
No, Steve Rogers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he doesn't like Captain America at all.
Steve?
No, it was Gutless, he called him in his book, which I
For,
thought was odd. Maybe Dick's getting a little cranky.
Dick was always cranky.
Mm-hmm.
and D. Scott got his first set by the Pony Express. We're not going to get into a Strat bashing contest here. First set I put together. What's the first set you put together?
74.
Nice cards.
Yes.
Did you still have the ones from the Washington National League?
Yes, but mine have this red funky thing that on like if you can imagine someone drooling from a sucker and leaving it on a baseball card. That's how mine came out of the pack. And so my only Washington cards from that set have that cherry sucker drool on them.
Oh, they smell good then. Yeah, but yeah. There is a great picture, and I think it's from 74, of the factory in Duryea, Pennsylvania, of this woman just giving one of those FML looks to the camera as the packs are going by. And yep, she's probably the one, it was either that or the spit from the Redman that she was chewing. So yeah. Quality control from tops of that era was right up there with Ford Pintos.
And why would it be, right? I mean, you're the only kid on the block.
There were 3 or 4 of us that were pretty heavy sports fans, and I'm realizing as I go out in the community that I keep finding in other small towns 2 or 3 big sports fans.
No, I mean tops. I mean,
that was it. That was absolutely it. You're right. I mean, there was no one else. Fleer did stickers, and I guess Donruss was around, but yeah, but anyway, okay. This is for you.
Oh, see, if it's non-PSA, I'd go Facebook Marketplace. If it's non-PSA and you think it's in really, really, really good condition, you can take some pictures and try it on eBay. But one of the things that I do in my job is to do our eBay shipping, and we do, I don't know, between 400 and 550 a week. And by far, the ones that are PSA are the safest bet to go for the best price.
Are they graded at all, Ken, or are they raw? Because eBay raw for that era is you're just asking to get burned.
Yeah.
3D cards.
Oh, sure.
Love those. I'd even eat the damn cornflakes.
Oh my God, that was brutal.
And I hated cornflakes. I still don't like cornflakes. I like other adult cereals now, but cornflakes get so soggy so quick. Raisin Bran wasn't so bad. My mother wasn't ever buying me Fruit Loops or Frosted Flakes. It just wasn't happening.
Oh.
I've forgiven her about last week, I think, for that. But,
it seems like you need a hug right now, but I can't help you. But
that's all right.
Okay.
Okay, so raw non-graded.
Boy. Yeah, I'd still go Facebook Marketplace and first and price them right and see what happens. And then I would try eBay second, but be patient.
There just is not a cheap way to authenticate cards.
No, we have a place locally that does it, but you're right. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. We have a place that authenticates autographs. Sorry, that authenticates autographs.
Yeah, and
which is also not cheap.
And so I'll ask this: PSA or Beckett?
Beckett.
Yeah, Beckett's going to be cheaper. You just want to, and have them in slabs.
You can control your turnaround with them, and they're controversial because people say that they're biased. about certain cards, but I think they're still the best there is.
Ken, how many cards are we talking about? The other thing is, you might just want to go to your local dealer. Either do them on consignment or see if they'll buy the collection. That's what my guy does. People call him about collections. But if you're doing the just catch as catch can, you're just asking for trouble if they're not graded or that.
Or if they're not near mint.
Right.
And not seriously near mint.
Ken, what I would recommend, and Curt, you find out who your local card, if there is a local card shop in your area, and call them. Have that person come to your house, look at the stuff, and hopefully he won't lowball you. But that's if you're talking about a bulk of cards, that's probably how I would do it.
But if you have singles that really look awesome, then that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Either get them graded through Beckett. The turnaround time for Beckett's pretty good too, right? It's not as bad as PSA.
How much do you want to pay?
Okay.
It gets faster the more you pay.
The more you pay. And such a gentleman, if not a scholar there. Wink, wink. All right. Well, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron. This is a lot of fun.
This was a lot of fun, and yet the 2 hours flies by, and I wasn't even thinking of doing 2 hours. But please don't be a stranger if we're live streaming or any of the guys are live streaming. Go in and say hi.
I will do that.
And it's outside of the Ohio State Gremlins. They really are a bunch of good guys. Sometimes I like them better than others.
Yes, but I will have a rooting interest in tomorrow's game. That's the only one I'll have a rooting interest in, but I'll definitely have a rooting interest
tomorrow. I saw that Miami and Florida were playing tonight.
Oh no, I meant the Cardinals and Reds.
Oh yes. So for that. So we'll do that tomorrow at 4:00, and then Curt and I will come up with a time for when we'll do the on a regular basis. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell when we go live. And Curt, thanks very much for sharing your story. And the CBD thing might be worth a try to see if you can do that.
I've heard that more than once, so I think that's my next move.
Okay, and so please keep us updated on that. And I gave Todd my email, and so when I get it from him, I will forward it to you. So
cool.
YouTube.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for hanging with us on a Saturday night, and we'll do this again real soon. Tomorrow, it will be the playing game between the 65 Reds at the 67 Cardinals, 4:00 Eastern, 1:00 Pacific. Until then, I'm Ron Juckett. Have yourself a very good night.